Ambassador Velthar stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, his 6 limbs folded in a posture of respect. The chamber was enormous, carved from crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Representatives from 300 worlds watched him from their floating platforms. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few existed only as clouds of gas held together by containment fields. But all of them turned their attention to Velthar as the High Chancellor spoke. "Ambassador, you have served the Council with distinction for 40 cycles," the Chancellor said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "We have a new assignment for you. A simple one." Velthar's primary eyes brightened with interest. Simple assignments were rare these days. Most worlds the Council contacted now were either too advanced to intimidate or too primitive to understand what was happening to them. Finding the balance was becoming difficult. "There is a world in the Outer Rim," the Chancellor continued. "Grid coordinates 7492. The species there calls their planet Earth. They have just achieved faster-than-light communication. By Council law, this makes them eligible for contact. They have just achieved complete Kablik." A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a blue and green planet with white clouds swirling across its surface. One large moon orbited nearby. Velthar studied the image carefully. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. "What do we know about them?" Velthar asked. An intelligence officer, a being covered in silver scales, brought up more data. "They call themselves humans. Bipedal, carbon-based, mammalian. Average lifespan of 80 local years. They have divided themselves into nearly 200 separate political groups called nations. Their history shows constant warfare. Very violent species. End. Violent. End. Violent. End." The hologram changed to show images of human cities. Tall buildings made of metal and glass. Roads filled with primitive vehicles. Velthar had seen similar things on dozens of other worlds. Nothing impressive. "Their technology?" he asked. "Crude but developing," the officer replied. "They use chemical rockets for space travel. Their weapons are mostly projectile-based, though they have discovered atomic fission. Their computers are barely capable of basic calculations by our standards." Velthar relaxed. This would indeed be simple. "And my mission?" "Standard protocol," the Chancellor said. "Make contact. Assess their civilization. Explain the benefits of joining the Council. Make it clear that resistance would be unwise. Return with their agreement to begin integration." It was a mission Velthar had completed many times before. Show up in an advanced ship. Demonstrate superior technology. Explain how small and insignificant the new species was in the grand scope of the galaxy. Most species submitted quickly once they understood their position. Those who didn't learned to regret it. "I accept this honor," Velthar said, bowing his head. The Council dismissed him with their blessing. Velthar walked through the crystal halls to the docking bay where his ship waited. It was a beautiful vessel, sleek and silver, powered by quantum drives that could cross the galaxy in days. Its hull was made from materials that could withstand the heat of a star. Weapons systems lined its sides, though Velthar rarely needed to use them. The ship itself was usually intimidating enough. His crew of 12 waited aboard. They were all Nomarians like him, tall and multi-limbed, with skin that shimmered purple in certain light. They had served with Velthar for years and knew the routine well. "Prepare for departure," Velthar ordered as he took his position on the command platform. "Set course for Earth. Grid coordinates 7492. The ship lifted smoothly from the docking bay and accelerated away from the Council's home station. Within moments, they had entered hyperspace, that strange realm between normal space where faster-than-light travel became possible. The journey would take 5 days. Velthar spent those days reviewing everything the Council knew about humans. He watched recordings of their broadcasts that had been intercepted over the years. Television shows, news reports, movies. It was standard procedure to learn about a species through their entertainment. What he saw confirmed the intelligence reports. Humans were violent creatures who seemed obsessed with war and conflict. Their stories almost always involved fighting, whether against each other or against imagined alien threats. They seemed to have a strange fascination with their own destruction. But Velthar also noticed other things. Humans created beautiful art and music. They wrote poetry and told stories that showed deep emotion. They laughed and cried and seemed to feel things very intensely. This was not unusual. Many species had emotional ranges, but humans seemed almost excessive in their feelings. They are a species of contradictions, his second officer observed. They create and destroy with equal passion. That will make them easier to control, Velthar said. Emotional species are always easier to manipulate. On the 5th day, they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Velthar ordered a slow approach, giving the humans time to detect them. It was part of the strategy. Let them see the ship coming. Let them panic a little. Let them understand that something far beyond their experience was about to happen. As they passed the orbit of Mars, Velthar's communications officer picked up thousands of radio transmissions from Earth. The humans had indeed detected them. Their broadcasts were filled with fear, excitement, and speculation. Every nation was reporting the same thing. Aliens were coming. Good, Velthar said. They're ready to receive us. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere smoothly, its shields deflecting the friction that would have destroyed any human spacecraft. Velthar had chosen a landing site in advance, near the city called Seoul, in a nation called South Korea. The Council's analysts had determined this would be a good neutral location, and the South Korean government had agreed to host the meeting. As they descended, Velthar looked at the Earth below. From space, it looked so peaceful. Cities glowed like strings of lights in the darkness. Oceans reflected the moonlight. It was hard to believe this world held the violent species described in the reports. The ship settled onto the prepared landing pad with barely a sound. Outside, Velthar could see crowds of humans held back by barriers. Cameras everywhere, pointing at his ship. Military vehicles surrounded the area, though their weapons looked primitive and harmless. A smaller group of humans stood closer, clearly the official delegation. Velthar counted 6 of them. They wore formal clothing and stood very still, watching his ship with expressions that could have been fear or curiosity. It was hard to tell with humans. All systems secure, his pilot reported. The area is safe. The humans have followed the protocols we transmitted. Velthar rose from his command platform. He adjusted his diplomatic robes, ensuring the Council's symbol was clearly visible on his chest. He checked his translator, a small device that would allow him to speak and understand human languages. Everything was ready. Open the main hatch, he ordered. The side of the ship split open, forming a ramp that extended down to the ground. Velthar walked forward, his 6 limbs moving in perfect coordination. The bright lights of human cameras made his skin shimmer. He heard gasps from the crowds as they saw him clearly for the first time. He descended the ramp slowly, making sure every camera captured his impressive height and alien appearance. This was the moment that usually sealed the deal. When a species saw how different, how advanced, how powerful their visitors were, they usually became much more cooperative. At the bottom of the ramp, the human delegation waited. The one in front, a male with dark hair and careful eyes, stepped forward and spoke in Korean. The translator caught the words instantly. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. I am Hyun-woo, representative of the United Nations. On behalf of all humanity, we greet you in peace. Velthar studied the human called Hyun-woo. He was small, barely reaching Velthar's mid-torso, fragile-looking, like most humans. But there was something in his eyes, something Velthar couldn't quite identify. Not fear, not even nervousness. Almost like confidence? Velthar dismissed the thought. Humans had no reason to be confident. I bring greetings from the Galactic Council, Velthar said, his translator rendering his words into Korean. We have come to welcome Earth into the larger community of intelligent species. Hyunwoo smiled. It seemed genuine, warm even. We are honored. Please, we have much to show you. Much to discuss. Will you allow us to be your hosts? This was going exactly as planned. Velthar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Another simple mission. Soon to be completed. I accept your hospitality, Velthar said. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that this simple mission would change everything. Not just for him, but for the entire Galactic Council. Because humanity had been waiting for this moment for a very long time, and they had prepared very carefully. The trap was set. Velthar had just walked into it. The motorcade moved through Seoul with careful precision. Velthar sat in a specially modified vehicle, his large frame requiring extra space. Through the window, he watched millions of humans lining the streets. They held signs and cameras, their faces showing every emotion, from fear to wonder to excitement. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, pointing at the convoy as it passed. Hyunwoo sat across from Velthar, speaking calmly about Earth's history and culture. Next to him was a female human who had been introduced as Dr. Daun, a scientist who studied alien life. Behind them, in another vehicle, rode General Taeyang, the highest-ranking military officer present. You must understand, Ambassador, Hyunwoo was saying. We have dreamed of this moment for generations. The idea that we are not alone in the universe has driven our scientists, our artists, our philosophers. Today, that dream becomes reality. Velthar made a gesture of acknowledgement. The humans seemed eager to please, which was good. It would make the negotiations easier. The Council is pleased to find a species so ready to embrace the larger galaxy. Dr. Daun leaned forward, her dark eyes curious. 347, Velthar replied. Some are old beyond your ability to measure time. Others are relatively new, though still far more advanced than humanity. All have found their place in the galactic order. And what would our place be? Hyunwoo asked, his voice still calm and friendly. This was the part Velthar had delivered countless times. Earth would begin as an associate member. You would receive access to certain technologies, trade opportunities, and cultural exchanges. In return, the Council would require mining rights on your moon and access to certain resources here on Earth. Your military would be disbanded, as the Council provides protection to all member worlds. Your governments would report to a Council administrator who would help guide your development. He watched their faces carefully. This was where most species began to show resistance. Some protested immediately. Others took time to understand what they were truly being offered. But all of them, eventually, came to the same conclusion. They had no choice. But Hyunwoo just nodded thoughtfully. I see. And if we refuse these terms? Then Earth would be marked as a hostile world, Velthar said simply. The Council does not tolerate threats to galactic peace. Isolation would be enforced until your species learned to cooperate. It was a polite way of saying Earth would be blockaded, their technology suppressed, their development halted. Some species chose this path. They always regretted it. We will need time to consider, Hyunwoo said. But first, let us show you our world, help you understand who we are. Perhaps then, we can find terms that benefit everyone. Velthar agreed. It was standard procedure anyway. See the cities, tour the facilities, understand the local culture. It helped him write better reports for the Council. Over the next 3 days, they showed him everything. Velthar visited the National Museum, where humans displayed artifacts from their long history. He saw stone tools from 1,000,000 years ago, weapons from ancient wars, art from every period of their development. The humans seemed obsessed with preserving their past, even the violent parts. Dr. Daun guided him through the exhibits, explaining each era. We have always been fighters, she said, gesturing to a display of swords and armor. Our planet has not been kind to us. We evolved as hunters, competing with larger and stronger predators. We learned to use tools, to work together, to think strategically. It was the only way to survive. Many species have violent origins, Velthar observed. Most outgrow it. Perhaps, Daun said, with a small smile. Or perhaps they simply learn when violence is necessary and when it is not. They showed him universities where human scientists studied everything from tiny atoms to distant galaxies. Velthar listened to lectures about human theories of physics, biology, and mathematics. The theories were crude but showed potential. Given a few thousand years and council guidance, humans might develop into a useful member species. General Taeyang took him to a military base. The soldiers demonstrated their weapons, guns that fired metal projectiles, vehicles with armor plating, aircraft that couldn't even leave the atmosphere. Velthar tried not to show his amusement. A single council warship could destroy this entire base in seconds. "These are your defenses?" Velthar asked. Taeyang's expression never changed. "These are sufficient for our current needs." Something about the way the general said it made Velthar pause. There was that same strange confidence he had seen in Hyunwoo, as if they knew something he didn't. But what could they possibly know? The Council's intelligence was thorough. They had been monitoring Earth for decades. On the evening of the third day, they hosted a formal dinner. Representatives from many human nations attended, dressed in their finest clothing. The meal was elaborate, with foods from across the planet. Humans, Velthar learned, placed great importance on sharing meals. It was a social ritual that built trust. During the dinner, a young human approached Velthar. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old, with bright eyes and nervous energy. Her name was Ji Woo, and she was introduced as a student of military strategy. "Ambassador," she said, her voice respectful. "May I ask you a question?" "Of course," Velthar replied. "How does the Council handle species that refuse to join?" It was a bold question, especially from someone so young. But Velthar saw no harm in answering. "It depends on the level of resistance. Most species see reason quickly, those who don't face economic isolation, technology suppression, and in extreme cases, military intervention." Jiwoo nodded slowly, as if memorizing his words. "And has any species ever successfully resisted the Council?" Siwoo, "No," Velthar said firmly. "The Council has existed for 50,000 of your years. We have seen every form of resistance, every strategy, every attempt at defiance. All have failed. The Council always prevails because we are united, advanced, and patient." "I see." She bowed and walked away. Velthar watched her go, feeling a strange unease. These humans asked too many questions about resistance and defiance. Were they actually considering refusing the Council's offer? How foolish that would be. After dinner, Hyunwoo invited Velthar to walk in a nearby garden. The night air was cool, and stars shone overhead. Somewhere up there, the Council's home station orbited a distant sun, waiting for Velthar's report. "Ambassador," Hyunwoo said as they walked, "you have seen our cities, our technology, our military. You have learned about our history and our culture. What is your assessment of humanity?" "Ah, you have seen our mating hard. Cross. You have seen our assessment of humanity." Velthar chose his words carefully. "You are a developing species with potential. Your emotional nature makes you volatile, but this can be tempered with proper guidance. Your violent history is concerning, but not unusual. With Council oversight, humanity could become a productive member of galactic civilization." Hyunwoo stopped walking and turned to face Velthar directly. In the moonlight, his expression was difficult to read. "And if I told you that everything you've seen is a lie?" Velthar felt a spike of confusion. "Explain. The cities, the technology, the military bases, all of it is what we want you to see. A carefully maintained illusion." The surface of our world is a stage, Ambassador, and you are watching a performance. That makes no sense, Velthar said. We have been monitoring your broadcasts for decades. We have seen your development. There is no deception possible on that scale. Hyunwoo smiled. But there was no humor in it. No deception that you could detect. You mean. But what if we were better at hiding than you were at finding? What if we knew you were watching and showed you exactly what we wanted you to see? A cold feeling spread through Velthar's body. You're claiming your entire civilization is a fabrication? Not fabrication, misdirection. The humans you see on the surface are real. Their lives are real. But they are only a fraction of our species. The rest live where you cannot see them, where your sensors cannot reach, where we have been preparing for this moment for centuries. Velthar's translator barely kept up with Hyunwoo's words. This was impossible. They had mapped every major city, tracked every satellite, analyzed every broadcast. There was nowhere for billions of humans to hide. I don't believe you, Velthar said. I expected that response, Hyunwoo said calmly. Which is why we're going to show you. Tomorrow, Dr. Da-un, General Tae-yang. And I will take you somewhere special, somewhere that will help you understand the truth about humanity. Where? Velthar demanded. Underground, Hyunwoo said simply. To see where we really live, to see what we've really built, to understand what humanity truly is. He started walking back toward the building, leaving Velthar standing alone in the garden. The ambassador looked up at the stars, feeling the first real tremor of doubt since he had arrived on Earth. What if Hyunwoo was telling the truth? What if there was more to humanity than the Council had discovered? No. It was impossible. Humans were a primitive species barely capable of reaching their own moon. They couldn't possibly have hidden an entire civilization from the Council's sensors, could they? That night, Velthar barely rested. He kept thinking about everything he had seen, looking for signs of deception. The humans had been friendly, cooperative, almost eager to show him everything. But now Hyunwoo claimed it was all a performance, a trick. The next morning, a transport arrived to take them to the secret location. Velthar climbed aboard, with Hyunwoo, Da-un, and General Tae-yang. The vehicle was different from the others he had seen, sleeker, faster, clearly more advanced than the primitive machines he had observed on Earth's roads. Where are we going? Velthar asked. To the mountains, Da-un replied. To a facility that doesn't appear on any map. To show you what we've kept hidden. The vehicle accelerated smoothly, moving far faster than should have been possible with Earth's technology. Velthar's unease grew with every kilometer. Something was very wrong here. Something he should have noticed earlier. After an hour, they arrived at what looked like a simple mountain range. No buildings, no roads, no signs of civilization, just rock and snow and empty sky. General Tae-yang led them to a flat area near the base of the mountain. He pulled out a small device and pressed several buttons. The ground beneath them hummed with power. Then the mountain opened. The entrance was massive, easily large enough to swallow Velthar's entire ship. Rock and earth slid aside with barely a sound, revealing a tunnel that descended into darkness. Lights flickered on automatically, illuminating a passage carved from solid stone with precision that spoke of advanced technology. Velthar felt his respiratory systems accelerate. This was not primitive human engineering. This was something else entirely. Please, General Tae-yang said, gesturing toward the entrance. We have much to show you. They walked into the tunnel, and the mountains sealed shut behind them. Velthar's instincts screamed danger, but his curiosity pushed him forward. He needed to see what the humans were hiding. He needed to understand what was happening. The tunnel sloped downward at a steady angle. The walls were smooth, reinforced with materials Velthar didn't recognize. His scanning equipment, which he had kept hidden in his robes, suddenly stopped working. Something was blocking his sensors. Security measures. Dr. Da-un explained, noticing his distress. We can't have any external signals reaching this facility. Not yours, not the Council's, not anyone's. What you're about to see must remain secret until we decide otherwise. The Council will know I'm missing, Velthar said, trying to keep his voice steady. My ship has tracking systems. Your ship believes you are touring a cultural site on the surface, Hyunwoo said. We're very good at signal manipulation. Ambassador. Your crew will not be concerned. They walked for 20 minutes, descending deeper and deeper into the earth. Velthar tried to calculate how far down they had traveled. 2 kilometers? 3? The temperature should have been rising, but somehow it remained comfortable. Climate control far beyond what he had seen on the surface. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Velthar stopped walking, his 6 limbs freezing in place as his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The cavern was enormous, stretching for kilometers in every direction. But it wasn't natural. Every surface had been carved and shaped by technology. And it wasn't empty. The cavern was filled with structures, buildings that rose hundreds of meters high, connected by bridges and platforms. Lights glowed everywhere, creating an artificial day, and moving through this underground city were humans. Thousands of them. Maybe tens of thousands. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The technology was wrong. Everything Velthar could see, the buildings, the vehicles moving through the air, the devices humans carried, all of it was too advanced. This wasn't primitive Earth technology. This was Council-level technology. Maybe beyond. Welcome to New Seoul, Dr. Da-eun said softly. One of our underground cities. We have 43 others like it, spread across the planet. Some under mountains, others under oceans, a few in locations you would never think to look. Velthar's translator struggled to find words. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected this. Our intelligence would have found it. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect, General Taeyang said. We've been jamming and redirecting Council surveillance for over 800 years. Every satellite you have in our system, every probe you've sent, every scan you've run, we've controlled what they saw. Hyunwoo gestured toward the city. The humans you met on the surface are real, Ambassador. They live their lives, raise their families, build their cultures, but they represent only a third of our population. The rest of us live here, underground and underwater, where we can develop our true technology without being observed. Why? Velthar managed to ask. Why would you do this? Fine, Discram. Why would you do this? Dr. Da-eun led him to a platform that overlooked the city. From this height, Velthar could see the true scale of what humans had built. The city stretched beyond the limits of his vision, disappearing into tunnels that led to other caverns, other cities. Because we knew you were coming, Da-eun said. Not you specifically, but someone like you. We detected the Council's existence 847 years ago. We intercepted your communications, decoded your languages, and learned everything we could about galactic civilization. She pulled out a device and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Council ships, Council stations, Council worlds. All of it familiar to Velthar. But how did humans have this information? We learned how the Council operates, Da-eun continued. How you contact new species, how you intimidate them, how you force them to submit. We saw what happened to the Korathi when they refused to join. We watched the Council crush the Telvan civilization when they resisted. We studied every species that came before us, and we learned from their mistakes. The holographic images changed, showing world after world falling under Council control. Some joined peacefully, others fought and lost. All of them, eventually, became subordinate to the Council's will. So we made a decision, Hyunwoo said. We would not let that happen to us. We would not become another conquered species, grateful for whatever scraps of technology the Council chose to give us. We would prepare. We would hide. And we would become strong enough that when the Council finally found us, we would be ready. Velthar felt dizzy. His 6 limbs trembled. For 800 years? You've been hiding for 800 years? Preparing, General Taeyang corrected. Not hiding. We've been building, learning, advancing. While the Council thought we were primitive savages fighting with sticks and stones, we were constructing underground cities. While you believed we had barely discovered flight, we were building faster-than-light ships. While you thought we were fragile and weak, we were becoming something far more dangerous. But your surface technology, Velthar protested. We saw it. Your primitive rockets, your simple computers, your chemical weapons. Theater, Daun said simply. A performance for your sensors. We knew where your surveillance satellites were positioned. We knew when your probes passed through our system. We made sure you always saw exactly what we wanted you to see. A species just advanced enough to contact, but too primitive to be a threat. She changed the holographic display. Now it showed maps of the Council's space trade routes, military positions, diplomatic relations. The information was detailed, current, and should have been impossible for humans to possess. We've had observation posts in Council space for 700 years, Daun explained. Hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as space debris, built into the shells of dead comets. We've been watching you as carefully as you've been watching us. We know your strengths, your weaknesses, your trade disputes, your political tensions. We know everything. Velthar's mind raced, trying to find some explanation that made sense. The Council would have detected your ships, your outposts. The Council has never seen a human ship, Hyunwoo interrupted. Because we're very, very good at not being seen. It's one of our oldest survival skills, Ambassador. Our evolutionary history taught us that the best way to deal with larger, stronger predators is to avoid being noticed. We've simply applied that lesson on a galactic scale. They took him deeper into the city. Velthar walked in a daze, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were seeing. They passed research facilities where humans studied technologies that rivaled anything in Council space. They saw manufacturing centers producing materials that shouldn't exist. They visited training centers where young humans practiced combat techniques designed specifically to counter every known Council species. Here's, in one building, Velthar saw something that made his blood freeze. It was a detailed model of a Numerian city, his home city. Every building was perfect, every street accurate, and surrounding the model were tactical displays showing attack vectors, defensive weaknesses, and casualty projections. We have models like this for every major population center in Council space, General Taeyang said, his voice emotionless. We've run millions of combat simulations. We know exactly how to fight each of your species. We know which weapons work best against which opponents. We know where to strike, to cause maximum disruption, with minimum effort. You're planning to attack the Council? Velthar whispered. No, Taeyang replied. We're prepared to defend ourselves if the Council attacks us. There's a difference, Ambassador. We don't want war. We've never wanted war. But we refuse to be conquered. Dr. Daun led him to another chamber, this one filled with displays showing Earth's true military capability. Ships that could cross the galaxy in hours. Weapons that could crack planets. Defense systems that made Council technology look primitive. And all of it hidden, waiting, ready to deploy if humanity ever needed it. How many of you are there? Velthar asked, his voice barely audible. On the surface, 8 billion, Hyunwoo said. Underground and in hidden facilities throughout our solar system, another 14 billion, 22 billion humans in total, Ambassador. And every single one of us has been raised knowing that someday, the Council would come. Every one of us has been taught to fight, to survive, to do whatever is necessary to protect our species. Velthar felt his legs weaken. He lowered himself to the ground, his 6 limbs unable to support him anymore. 22 billion humans, all trained for war, all hidden from the council, all waiting for this moment. "Why are you telling me this?" he finally asked. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Hyunwoo knelt beside him, bringing his face level with Velthar's primary eyes. "Because you need to take a message back to the council. A message they will understand and believe. We can't let them find out about us slowly, piece by piece. That would lead to misunderstandings, escalation, war. So, instead, we're showing you everything at once. We're removing any doubt about what we are and what we're capable of." "But you could have destroyed the council years ago," Velthar said. "If you're this advanced, this prepared, why didn't you strike first?" Dr. Daun smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Because we're not monsters, Ambassador. We're not conquerors. We don't want to rule the galaxy or subjugate other species. We just want to be left alone. We just want to live our lives without someone else deciding our fate." She helped Velthar stand. "We're showing you this because we're hoping for peace. We're hoping that when the Council understands what humanity really is, they'll make the wise choice. They'll leave us alone, and we'll leave them alone. Everyone continues existing, and no one has to die. And, if the Council doesn't choose peace?" Velthar asked, though he already knew the answer. General Taeyang's expression hardened. "Then, we'll show the Council why humanity survived everything our planet threw at us. We'll show them why we're the apex predator of Earth. We'll show them what happens when you back humans into a corner and force them to fight." They took Velthar to one more room. It was smaller, simpler than the others. Inside sat a young woman at a control station. She looked up as they entered and smiled warmly. "Ambassador Velthar," Hyunwoo said, "I'd like you to meet Jiwoo." "The same Jiwoo you spoke with at dinner." Velthar recognized her immediately. The young student who had asked about resistance. But she wasn't a student at all. Jiwoo stood and bowed politely, the same gesture she had made at dinner. But now, in this underground facility, surrounded by technology that shouldn't exist, she seemed different, more dangerous somehow, though her smile remained gentle and her voice soft. "Hello again, Ambassador," she said. "I apologize for deceiving you at the dinner. It's part of my job to assess visitors, to understand how they think." "What is your job?" Velthar asked, his translator catching the tremor in his voice. "I'm a tactical officer," Jiwoo replied. "I specialize in psychological warfare, strategic assessment, and threat neutralization. I've been studying the Council for 15 years, learning how your species think, how you make decisions, what frightens you." She gestured to the control station behind her. "I've run over 10,000 combat simulations involving the Council. I know every ship class you operate, every weapon system you use, every tactical doctrine you follow. I could tell you exactly how a war between humanity and the Council would unfold, hour by hour, casualty by casualty." Velthar felt cold, despite the comfortable temperature. This small human, who barely reached his mid-torso, spoke about destroying the Council with the same calm tone she might use to discuss the weather. The disconnect between her gentle appearance and her terrible knowledge made her somehow more frightening than General Taeyang with all his military bearing. "Show him," Dr. Daun said quietly. Jiwoo nodded and turned to her control station. Her fingers moved across holographic interfaces with practiced ease. Suddenly, images flooded Velthar's mind not from any screen, but directly into his neural pathways. His species' natural telepathy, which the Council had always considered a gift, had become a weapon in human hands. The images showed battles. Hundreds of them. Thousands. In every scenario, human forces engaged Council fleets with devastating efficiency. Ships burned. Stations fell. Worlds went dark. The Council's 347 member species found themselves suddenly fighting for survival against an enemy they had never known existed. But these weren't just random violent images. They were detailed tactical projections. Jiwoo showed Velthar exactly where humanity would strike first: communication hubs, supply lines, command centers, She showed him how human ships would bypass Council defenses using stealth technology that made them invisible to sensors. She showed him weapons that could destroy entire fleets in seconds. And most terrifying of all, she showed him the timeline. The war would last 17 days. In 17 days, humanity would shatter the Council completely, reducing 50,000 years of galactic civilization to burning wreckage. "Stop," Velthar gasped. The images ceased immediately. Velthar found himself on his knees again, his 6 limbs trembling uncontrollably. He had witnessed countless battles in his long career, but these simulations were different. They were too precise, too detailed, too confident. Jiwoo wasn't showing him possibilities. She was showing him probabilities. Things that would happen if humanity chose to make them happen. "I'm sorry," Jiwoo said. And she actually sounded apologetic. "I know that was disturbing. But you needed to see it. You needed to understand that this isn't bravado or empty threats. We've done the math, run the simulations, tested every variable. We know we can win. And Hyunwoo helped Velthar to his feet. But winning isn't the same as wanting to fight, Ambassador. That's what we're trying to make you understand. We have all this power, all this capability, all this preparation, and we're choosing not to use it. We're choosing peace, despite being able to take whatever we want through force." "Why?" Velthar asked. "If you're this powerful, why reveal yourselves at all? Why not just remain hidden?" Dr. Dayun moved to a window that looked out over the underground city. Humans walked the streets below, living their lives in this hidden world. Children played in parks. Couples held hands. Elderly humans sat on benches, watching the artificial sky. "Because we're tired of hiding," Daun said softly. "For 800 years, we've lived in fear of the Council finding us before we were ready. We've built all this in secret, taught our children in whispers, prepared for a war we hoped would never come. We're tired of it. We want to be free. We want to join the galaxy on our own terms, not as conquered subjects but as equals." She turned to face Velthar. "You represent a choice for us, Ambassador. We can continue hiding for another 1,000 years, always watching the stars in fear. Or we can reveal ourselves, show our strength, and demand the respect we deserve. We're choosing the latter. We're choosing to stand up and say, 'We are humanity. We are here. And we will not be conquered.'" General Taeyang pulled up another display, this one showing the full extent of humanity's hidden infrastructure. Velthar saw orbital platforms disguised as satellites, weapons installations hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon, ship construction facilities built into asteroids throughout the solar system, and beyond that, observation posts scattered throughout Council space, watching and waiting. "We could have remained hidden," Taeyang said. "We could have let the Council pass us by. Mark Earth as uninteresting. Move on to other species. But that would only delay the inevitable. Someday, the Council would have returned. Someday, our secret would have been discovered. Better to control when and how that revelation happens. And now you've seen everything," Hyunwoo said. "You know our strength, our preparation, our capability. Now comes the hard part, Ambassador. Now you have to decide what to do with this knowledge." Velthar looked at each of them in turn. Hyunwoo with his calm diplomacy, Daun with her scientific precision, Taeyang with his military bearing, and Jiwoo still sitting at her control station, her gentle smile hiding the mind that could orchestrate the destruction of civilizations. "What do you want me to do?" Velthar asked. "Return to the Council," Hyunwoo said. "Tell them everything you've seen. Show them the data we're giving you, just a fraction of our capabilities, but enough to make our point. And deliver our message, which is, leave Earth alone," Daun said firmly. "Forget you found us. Mark this sector of space as restricted. Never contact us again. Go back to your 347 member species and continue existing as you always have." Just pretend humanity doesn't exist. And if we do that? Velthar asked. If the Council agrees to your terms, then humanity will remain in our solar system, Taeyang replied. We'll continue our development, our research, our civilization. We won't interfere with Council affairs. We won't expand into Council space. We'll simply exist, separate and independent. Two civilizations, occupying the same galaxy, never interacting. But if the Council refuses? Velthar had to ask, though he dreaded the answer. Jiwoo spoke up, her voice still gentle despite her terrible words. Then we'll defend ourselves. The Council will send fleets, and those fleets will never return home. The Council will send more fleets, and the same thing will happen. Eventually, the Council will escalate, bringing more forces, using more powerful weapons, and humanity will match that escalation, step by step, until there's nothing left of the Council to escalate with. She stood and walked closer to Velthar. We don't want that, Ambassador. Despite everything I've shown you, despite all our weapons and strategies and plans, we truly don't want war. War means death, destruction, suffering on a scale that horrifies us. We've seen enough of that in our own history. We don't want to inflict it on the galaxy. But we will if we must, General Taeyang added. That's what makes humans different from most species you've encountered. We can be peaceful, gentle, creative, kind, until you threaten our survival. Then, we become something else. Something you really don't want to face. Hyunwoo produced a small data device and handed it to Velthar. This contains everything you need to show the Council. Technical specifications of some of our systems. Recordings from our observation posts in Council space. Simulations of what would happen if war broke out. It's not everything. We're not foolish enough to give away all our secrets. But it's enough. Velthar took the device with trembling limbs. It was so small, so light, yet it contained information that would change galactic civilization forever. The proof that humanity was not what the Council believed. The evidence that would force the Council to make an impossible choice. You're asking the Council to abandon 50,000 years of policy, Velthar said. We have never let a species remain independent once contact has been made. We have never backed down from a confrontation. The Council will not want to appear weak. Then the Council needs to decide what's more important, Daeun said. Pride or survival. Because those are the only two options we're offering. Pride leads to war. And war leads to the Council's destruction. Survival means accepting that there's one species in this galaxy you can't dominate. Why are you so confident you can win? Velthar asked desperately. The Council has resources beyond counting. Ships from hundreds of worlds. Weapons developed over millennia. How can one species, hidden on one planet, possibly stand against all of that? Jiwoo smiled, and for the first time, Velthar saw something truly frightening in that smile. We're the species that evolved on a planet that tried very hard to kill us. We survived ice ages and meteor impacts. We survived diseases that killed billions. We survived wars with weapons that could end all life on our world. We survived every predator, every disaster, every catastrophe our planet threw at us. She gestured to the city around them. We built all this while hiding from the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. We developed technology to rival yours while making you believe we were primitive. We infiltrated Council space without being detected. We learned everything about you while revealing nothing about ourselves. And we did it all in just 800 years. Now imagine what we could do if we stopped hiding, she continued. Imagine what we could accomplish if we used all our resources, all our population, all our creativity. Not for concealment, but for war. The Council would face 22 billion humans, every single one willing to die to protect our species. Every one of us capable of learning, adapting, improvising. Every one of us carrying 800 years of preparation, and millions of years of evolutionary survival instinct. She moved closer, her small frame somehow intimidating despite being dwarfed by Velthar's size. You would face every nightmare your species has ever imagined, Ambassador, because humans don't just fight to win. We fight to survive. And when we fight to survive, we don't stop until either we're dead or our enemies are. There is no middle ground. There is no surrender. There is only survival or extinction. The room fell silent. Velthar looked at the data device in his hands, feeling its weight despite its small size. Everything he had believed about the galaxy, about the Council's superiority, about humanity's place in the universe, all of it was wrong. Everything was wrong. The journey back to the surface took hours. Velthar walked in silence, his mind replaying everything he had seen, everything he had learned. Hyunwoo, Da-un, and General Taeyang accompanied him, their expressions neutral. They had shown him their secret, revealed their power, and now they waited to see what he would do with that knowledge. When they reached the surface, Velthar blinked in the bright sunlight. The mountain had sealed behind them, leaving no trace of the entrance. To anyone watching, they had simply emerged from a tourist site. The illusion was perfect, maintained even now, when Velthar knew the truth. His ship waited at the landing site, exactly where he had left it. His crew had no idea what had happened. They believed their ambassador had spent the last few hours touring human cultural sites, just as the false signals had told them. Velthar felt sick knowing how easily humans had manipulated his people's technology. "Will you deliver our message?" Hyunwoo asked. Velthar clutched the data device. "I will tell the Council everything. I will show them what you've shown me, but I cannot predict their response." "We know," Da-un said. "That's why we're prepared for both outcomes, peace or war." General Taeyang stepped forward. "Ambassador, I want you to understand something. Everything we showed you today, every weapon system, every tactical simulation, every secret facility, that's only what we chose to reveal. We have other capabilities, deeper secrets, contingencies you haven't seen. We gave you enough to make our point, but not enough to give the Council a complete picture of our defenses." "Why tell me that?" Velthar asked. "Because I want you to tell the Council," Taeyang replied. "I want them to know that even with everything you've shown them, they still don't know everything. I want them to lie awake at night, wondering what else humanity is hiding. I want them to be afraid enough to choose peace." Velthar looked at the three humans standing before him. They represented billions of others like them, all hidden, all prepared, all waiting. For 800 years, humanity had existed in the shadows, building and planning and preparing for this moment. The patience alone was staggering. What species could maintain such discipline for so long? "I have one question," Velthar said. "You could have remained hidden forever. You could have avoided this confrontation entirely. Why reveal yourselves now? Why take this risk?" Hyunwoo smiled sadly. "Because we have children, Ambassador. Generations born in underground cities, raised in artificial light, taught to hide who they are and what they can do. We've asked them to live in fear for 800 years. We want our children to see real sunlight, to build cities on the surface, to explore the galaxy without hiding. We want them to be free. Freedom is worth the risk," Da-un added. "Even the risk of war, even the risk of extinction. Because what's the point of surviving if you're not truly living?" Velthar understood then. It wasn't just about power or technology or military capability. It was about something deeper, something fundamental to human nature. They would rather face annihilation than continue living in fear. They would rather fight the entire galaxy than accept subjugation. It was insane. It was terrifying. It was, somehow, magnificent. "I will tell the Council," Velthar said. "I will tell them everything. and I will recommend that they accept your terms. Thank you, Hyunwoo said. That's all we ask. Safe journey, Ambassador. Thanks for watching, and see Yuning subscribe. Velthar walked up the ramp into his ship. His crew greeted him cheerfully, asking about his tour of Earth. He told them it had been educational. They had no idea how much of an understatement that was. As the ship lifted off and climbed toward space, Velthar looked down at Earth one last time. From orbit, it looked so peaceful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, beautiful and fragile. But now, he knew the truth. Beneath that gentle surface lurked something dark and dangerous. Something that had been waiting in silence for the right moment to reveal itself. The journey back to Council Space took 5 days. Velthar spent the entire time in his private quarters, refusing meals, avoiding his crew. He couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. The underground cities, the advanced technology, the cold calculations of casualties and conquest, and most of all, Jiwoo's gentle smile as she described the destruction of civilizations. Humans were predators. He had known that intellectually, had read it in the intelligence reports. But knowing and understanding were different things. Now, he understood what it meant. Humans had evolved as hunters, learning to track and kill prey larger and more dangerous than themselves. They had developed intelligence specifically to overcome their physical limitations. Their entire civilization was built on the foundation of strategic thinking, planning, and coordinated violence. And they had been hunting the Council for 800 years. Studying them, learning their weaknesses, preparing their attack. The Council had believed itself the apex of galactic civilization, but they had been prey all along, watched by predators they never knew existed. When the ship finally arrived at Council Space, Velthar felt no relief, only dread. He knew what came next. He would present his report, show the data, and watch the Council's reaction. And he had no idea which way they would choose. The Council chambers were full when Velthar arrived. Every representative was present, eager to hear about Earth's integration. They expected good news, confirmation that another primitive species had been brought into the fold. They expected routine. They were about to learn there was nothing routine about humanity. Velthar stood in the center of the chamber, the small data device held in his shaking limbs. The High Chancellor floated above, its energy form pulsing with anticipation. Ambassador Velthar, the Chancellor said, "Welcome home. Tell us of Earth. Will they join the Council peacefully?" Velthar looked around at the assembled representatives. 347 species from across the galaxy. Some of the oldest civilizations in known space, all of them secure in their power, confident in their superiority. They had no idea what was coming. Earth will not join the Council, Velthar said quietly. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Chancellor's energy form darkened slightly. Did they refuse? We have protocols for resistance. It's not resistance, Velthar interrupted, something he had never done before in 40 cycles of service. It's something else. Something we've never encountered before. Please, let me show you. We can get into this cast. He activated the data device. Holographic displays filled the chamber, showing everything humanity had revealed. The underground cities, the hidden population, the advanced technology, the observation posts scattered throughout Council space, the tactical simulations, all of it, laid bare for the Council to see. The chamber fell completely silent. Velthar watched as realization spread across the representatives' faces, those that had faces. Horror, disbelief, fear. Some denied what they were seeing. Others immediately began calculating military responses. A few simply shut down, their minds unable to process the implications. This is impossible, the Chancellor finally said. We have been monitoring Earth for decades. Our intelligence is thorough. This data must be falsified. Art Khan, it's real, Velthar said, his voice empty. I saw it myself. I walked through their underground cities. I met their military commanders. I spoke with their tactical officers. Everything you're seeing is real. And it represents only a fraction of what they have. They specifically told me they're withholding most of their capabilities. He pulled up Jiwoo's simulations. The ones showing the Council's defeat. They've been studying us for 800 years. They know everything about us, our strengths, our weaknesses, our military deployments, our political tensions. They have observation posts we've never detected. They have technologies we don't understand. And they've run millions of combat simulations that all show the same result. If we go to war with humanity, we lose. One species cannot defeat the entire council. A military commander from the Vrax Empire declared. We have resources from hundreds of worlds. They're confined to one planet. 22 billion of them, Velthar interrupted. 22 billion humans. Every single one trained for war since childhood. Every one of them willing to die to protect their species. Every one of them carrying millions of years of predatory evolution and 800 years of strategic preparation. They're not just soldiers, they're survivors. And they've survived things that would have destroyed any of our species. He showed them more data. Earth's violent history. The wars, the disasters, the near extinctions. And through it all, humanity had endured. They had adapted. They had overcome. They had turned every setback into a lesson. Every defeat into motivation. Every loss into determination. They don't fight like we do. Velthar continued. They don't fight for territory or resources or glory. They fight to survive. And when they fight to survive, they don't stop. They don't surrender. They don't negotiate. They simply keep fighting until either they win or they're all dead. There is no middle ground with humans. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called for immediate military action, arguing that humanity's threat must be eliminated before they grew stronger. Others advocated caution, suggesting more intelligence gathering. A few, very few, suggested accepting humanity's terms and leaving them alone. Velthar let them argue. He understood their reactions. It was the same process he had gone through in his own mind during the journey home. Denial, anger, bargaining, but eventually, they would reach the same conclusion he had reached. The High Chancellor raised its energy form, demanding silence. Ambassador Velthar, you have spent time with these humans. You have seen their capabilities firsthand. What is your recommendation? Velthar met the Chancellor's gaze directly. Leave them alone. Mark Earth and its entire sector as restricted space. Remove all records of our contact from the databases. Pretend we never found them. And hope they're content to remain in their solar system. That would be surrender. The Vrax commander protested. The Council does not surrender to anyone. It's not surrender, Velthar said. It's survival. Because if we fight them, if we push them, if we give them any reason to view us as a threat, they will destroy us. Not because they want to. Not because they enjoy violence. But because that's what they do. They survive. And if the Council stands between them and survival, the Council will cease to exist. He pulled up one final image. Jiwoo, sitting at her control station, her gentle smile hiding the mind that could orchestrate galactic destruction. This is a tactical officer named Jiwoo. She's 20 years old. She has spent her entire life studying how to defeat the Council. She knows more about our military capabilities than most of our commanders. She can predict our strategies before we implement them. And there are millions like her, all trained, all prepared, all waiting. The humans gave me a message to deliver. Velthar continued. They said, leave Earth alone. Don't try to integrate us. Don't try to conquer us. Don't even think about us. Just pretend we don't exist. Because if you force their hand, If you make them choose between submission and war, they will choose war. And they will win. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Every representative understood what Velthar was telling them. The Council, which had dominated the galaxy for 50,000 years, had finally met something it couldn't dominate. Something stronger, smarter, more determined. Something that had been preparing for this confrontation since before most Council species had achieved spaceflight. But they offered mercy, Velthar said softly. Despite having every advantage, despite being able to destroy us at any time, they offered peace. They don't want war. They just want to be left alone. They're giving us a choice. Accept their independence and continue existing, or try to conquer them and face annihilation. The High Chancellor's energy form pulsed slowly, a sign of deep contemplation. Yes, Velthar agreed, but so are humans. They're unlike any species we've ever encountered. More dangerous, more capable, more determined. And somehow, despite all that, also more merciful. They could have struck first, destroyed the Council before we knew they existed. But they chose to reveal themselves, to give us a chance at peace. So what do we do? The Chancellor asked. Velthar looked around the chamber one last time, at the representatives who had built an empire spanning hundreds of worlds, at the species who had never faced a real challenge to their authority, at the civilization that suddenly found itself standing at a crossroads. We make the wise choice, Velthar said. We accept their terms. We seal all records of Earth. We mark their sector as unexplored. We tell no one what we found. And we hope that humanity remains content in their corner of the galaxy and never decides that the Council represents a threat to their existence. Because if they do, he added, his voice barely a whisper, we're all dead. The vote took hours. Some species argued for war, others for diplomacy. But eventually, faced with the evidence Velthar had presented, faced with the terrible calculus of survival versus pride, the Council made its decision. The vote was unanimous. All records of Earth were sealed. The sector was marked as restricted. Ships were ordered to avoid that region of space, and the official databases were updated to show the area as unexplored, empty, containing nothing of interest. The Galactic Council, which had never retreated from any challenge in 50,000 years, chose to pretend humanity didn't exist. And on Earth, in underground cities and hidden facilities across the planet, humanity watched and waited. They had won without firing a shot. They had achieved independence through preparation and patience. They had forced the galaxy's greatest power to back down simply by revealing what they truly were. But they didn't celebrate. They just continued building, learning, preparing, because they knew the truth. Peace was never permanent. Threats would always emerge, and humanity needed to be ready. They had survived everything their planet had thrown at them. They had hidden from the Council for 800 years. They had prepared for war while hoping for peace, and now they were free. Free to build their civilization on their own terms. Free to explore the stars when they chose. Free to be what they had always been. Survivors. The universe would learn, eventually, what it meant to face humanity. But for now, in this moment, there was peace. An uneasy peace, built on fear and respect in equal measure. The kind of peace that lasted because both sides understood the cost of breaking it. Velthar returned to his duties, but he was never the same. His eyes held a haunted quality that never faded. When other ambassadors asked about his mission to Earth, he would simply say it had been educational and change the subject. But sometimes, late at night, he would look up at the stars and wonder what else humanity was building, wonder what other secrets they kept, wonder if they were still watching the Council, still running their simulations, still preparing for a war that might never come. And he hoped, with everything in his being, that the Council would never give them a reason to stop preparing and start fighting, because he had seen what humanity was capable of. He had looked into the abyss of human determination, and the abyss, with gentle smiles and terrible knowledge, had looked back.